Good morning, friends. We are here to have a discussion on fire and life safety in urban context. So we are organizing in our NIDM webinar series this important topic we are discussing today. So as far the program for the day is concerned, we are having opening remarks, keynote address by our Executive Director, Major General Manoj Kumar Bindal Sahab. Then we have three eminent speakers, Professor Vinod Kumar Paul from SPA Delhi, Shri R.C. Sharma Sahab, former Chief Delhi Fire Services, and Dr. Ajay Bahal from Shushtra Trauma Center, Delhi. And he's a professor in MAMC, Maulana Azad Medical College. So this is the program in brief, and I will introduce the speakers in detail after some time. In the meantime, as you know that urban areas are, or you can start with fires are taking a big toll in urban areas, and urban areas are being impacted on and off with these fires. And you can see that almost all uses have been impacted in urban context. For say, fires are impacting the residential areas, fire are commercial areas, they are impacting our schools, our hospitals, our godowns. Almost every sphere of life is being impacted by the fires. If you see the example of fires, I can very easily quote examples in hospitals, including our AIMS was impacted by fire last year. We had fire in AIMS main block. We have fire in trauma center of AIMS last year. And when trauma center was impacted, we had a case study in our program on that. 2 operation theaters were completely burned down. So this is the impact. Then we had the fires in our schools. Dabwali fire, Dabwali in Haryana, nobody can forget about that fire. Fire in Kumkoran, nobody can forget about that fire and that level of impact what has taken place there. Then fire in hotel context. Last year in Delhi, we had Arpit Palace fire. So you take the name of the fire in academic institutes, not only the Surat fire last year. So I'm just confining myself for those fires which are very recent. So Surat fire, it's a big tragedy. And you see, there was a fire in Old Delhi go down last year in winters, and it's a huge impact on the life and lifestyles and property and almost everything. And one of the contrasting thing or important thing in fire management in urban context is that what you do is that when fire system approaches to douse that fire, we are not having proper systems in place. Neither we have sufficient quantities of water available in the vicinity of fire source, nor we have the proper passages for fire tenders to pass through that. So we have a lot of issues. Then fires in urban areas, almost every summer we have these fires in our urban areas, in slums and unauthorized colonies. So this is a big issue at national level. But the issue is why fires are taking place. According to one study, and Sharma Sahab will correct me on that, one of the major source of fires in urban context is short circuiting due to electricity. So, and why short circuiting is taking place? This is, you can say, on some aspect is that it's the carelessness of at individual level. So we have to be slightly vigilant to douse or to control these things to save ourselves. Then post-earthquake scenario, fires are definitely impacting in a big way in post-earthquake scenarios. And you see that there are several examples at international level when fires have impacted, burned down the complete cities. It started from 1906 San Francisco earthquake, and as last in Kobe earthquake 1995, fire impacted the city, several parts of the cities. So, and when we were preparing for this, Professor Paul is going to touch this aspect as well in our context, that post-earthquake fires are definitely going to create a big issue at national level. Then another important aspect is that fires. Another important fire which I can very easily remember is that London fire, where that residential apartment building was completely burned down. And the reason for that is, Paul Saab may correct me, Professor Paul may correct me, that we used some combustible material on use of combustible material as a building material. So this is another issue. People are not aware about how to build our built environment, how to construct our built environment. So this is one of the major issues which need to be propagated to all these things. Then we have a lot of mechanisms for controlling the fire. We have National Building Code, which is so exclusively defining fire hazard risk mitigation almost in all settings. But the issue is that implementation. There are several issues with implementation of that National Building Code, and codal requirements are not being fulfilled. So this is in brief about that fire thing. And considering this important issue, we are covering today this fire and life. And when fire is taking place, life is definitely impacted. So we have to be extra vigilant, not only in our residences, not in our offices, almost all entire form of built environment. So this is the thing. Then so many issues are there, but in a 2 hours webinar, you can't cover all aspects. I will request Paul Saab as well that he may touch upon some land use aspects of fire risk mitigation as well. So these are the few things which we are going to deliberate over the next 2 hours. And this is in brief, and we are having 3 eminent speakers, as I have already mentioned. So let's deliberate on this. And with these introductory remarks, I request my Executive Director, Mr. Manoj Kumar Bindal Saab, to give the keynote address. But before that, let me introduce Bindal Saab. He is basically from Armed Forces. He joined the Corps of Army Air Defense in December 1995. He's an alumnus of the National Defense Academy. Bindal Saab is a graduate of the Defense Services Staff College and has attended the prestigious Higher Command course at the Army War College. He holds a master's degree in Defense and Strategic Studies, as well as Master Philosophy in Defense and Management Studies. Bindal Saab is having a distinguished career, and he has served almost all environments, including high altitude, means mountains, plains, deserts, and whatnot. So he's one of the widely experienced person amongst us, and he's leading our NIDM team from the front. And under his leadership, we have definitely bring a lot of laurels to the institute and the country. Bindal Saab has already served the United Nations mission in Mozambique. He was the Director, Center for United Nations Peacekeeping in New Delhi. For 3 years, he was also the Secretary of the International Association of Peacekeeping Training Centers. So he's one of the highly distinguished person leading our NIDM team. And with this brief introduction of Executive Director NIDM, I request Major General Manoj Kumar Bindal Saab to inaugurate this program with a keynote address. Sir, this is your turn.
Thank you, Dr. Amir Ali Khan. First of all, heartiest welcome to all the participants who have joined, and a special welcome to the speakers, Dr. Ajay Vahel, Professor Virendra Kumar Paul, Shri Ashish Sharma ji, and I can also see some known faces on this. Muzaffar Ahmad ji, former member NDMA, Major V.K. Naik is there. Then I can see Nakul Tarun, who was also part of NIDM earlier, and Mr. Le Rigo also, who's very keen and he gives very good inputs. But I don't know most of the people because the photographs are not available. But heartiest welcome to each and every one of you. Today, it's a very appropriate topic because the number of deaths that we are facing is statistics of 2015 by one agency. It shows about that in the year 2015, India lost 17,700 people to fire. That is at a rate of 48 people per day, if you just average it out. And out of that, 60 were women. And out of these 17,700, nearly 30% of the deaths were in the two states of Maharashtra and Gujarat, because they are the most urbanized. So there is a connection between urbanization and fire incidents, which is going to be discussed today, because the topic is an urban context. We have a large number of issues in which one of the main issues is uh, violation of the building and fire safety norms. Now, this is being carried out by all agencies, whether it be at the governance level, whether it be the people who are supposed to carry out the audit or the checks, or the people who are supposed to execute it. And also, lastly, the people who are supposed to use that facility. So all four are complicit in this, and that's why these violations are happening. Already spoken about human negligence, electrical short circuits, and informed habits. Large number of fires start due to the cigarette, bidi, or leaving some electrical appliance on. Uh, in the winters, you have those heaters which you keep it on, and that creates fire. Or short circuits either due to loose connection or due to overloading. Uh, and it is also very prevalent now, because the distinction between residential areas and industrial areas, that has diminished. There's no clear demarcation between the two, and both have different stresses, both have different requirements of fire safety. Then large number of buildings are being made without NOC from the fire department. So that is again a major area which we need to. In 2011, one study was done in which it was found that we have 65% deficiencies in fire stations. Now, when we don't have fire stations, when we don't have firefighters, when there are lack of resources with the firefighters, and there is inadequate firefighting equipment, inadequate modern equipment to carry out firefighting tasks, inadequate funding, then things are going to suffer. So that also needs to look into. In the policy itself, adequate funding, adequate provisions have to be made for the firefighting infrastructure, or structured firefighting infrastructure, institutional infrastructure should be made very, very capable as per the needs of the area. Training institutions, the number of people who are getting trained on fire very limited, except for the firefighters. The others are not getting trained to that extent to which they should be. So public awareness is the most important part, which we can do immediately. Public is the drivers of change. Community is the drivers of change. The inhabitants and in every building, they are the drivers of change. If they want, they can bring about a change. They can ask for a fire safety audit. They can carry out hazard identification and risk their own area around them, and ensure that the proper firefighting equipment is bought and kept, and there is a regular fire safety drill being carried out. Firefighting workshops is carried out in the localities and in nearby schools and colleges. So all these things are like do's and don'ts, which the local community can do, and they can also ensure that whosoever is responsible in that area for firefighting or mutual aid scheme, they are also held accountable by their intervention. So there are three things to it. One is the funding and the policy program. Second is inadequacy of the firefighting department because of that. And third is lack of public awareness or negligence of public, even if they know due to reasons that they are complicit that nothing is going to happen. So these three-pronged strategy, if we start, and fire should be talked about. We hardly ever see fire being talked about on the television or any media, except when there is a fire. So there needs to be awareness campaign from through all medias to ensure that small incidents like cylinder burst, gas stove burst, short circuit, those are at least removed from the scene. and thereafter we go in for a bigger change. With this, I will stop here because there's a lot to say on this subject. It is very close to everyone's heart. And but we have three very prominent speakers who will be speaking on three diverse systems, and I'm looking forward to listening to them. I'll expect the participants to raise good questions and discussion points through the chat box, and I'll be keenly listening to this particular presentation. Thank you once again. Over to you, Dr. Amir.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to listen to you. And as you have brought a very important issue into the context, and that is more women are impacted by these fires. So this is one of the challenge to curtail those fires and reduce the mortality rate among the women and all these things. And you have talked about building bylaws violation. So this is a serious concern which we have to address, and Professor Paul is the right person to talk about all those building bylaws violations and use of building codes and use of national building code in designing and planning so many things. Then definitely lack of awareness is paying a lot of things. Sharma Sahab definitely going to touch that NOC issue of occupancy certificate before fire and fire department involvement in that. Definitely, I'm not sure Sharma ji can deliberate upon the deficiency and all those things. So I request him to cover that aspect as well. Modern equipment and use and all those things. So lot of points have already been raised by executive director, sir. Schools and colleges have to play a very important role, sir. So let's discuss about all those things. So now I take this opportunity to introduce three eminent panelists. We have today with us Dr. Ajay Bahal, who is MS Shustra Trauma Center of Delhi Government, Maulana Azad Medical College, and he's also associated with the LNJP Hospital in Delhi. He's having MD in ortho, and he also having expertise in medicine, anesthesia, rehabilitation, disaster management, and administration. So Dr. Bahal is one of the eminent resource person at Delhi level, and he's for NIDM. He's our own person, and he is helping us in so many things. RC Sharma Saab is retired former chief of Delhi Fire Service. He is having a long experience in fire and safety, and his expertise is fire safety in urban context as well as industrial safety. He has wide experience working with the CISF, Indian Oil Corporation, Bokaro Steel Plant, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, and so many things. He worked post Gujarat earthquake in Bhuj as well. So with these things, he's having a wide experience. He has been awarded by various presidential medals for meritorious services and distinguished services. He has been awarded by the DGCISF for his work on Bhuj earthquake as well. So we have the third eminent speaker with us is Professor V.K. Paul Saab. Paul Saab is an eminent expert on these subjects. He's currently Dean Planning and Development at School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi. He's a visiting professor at the School of Built Environment, Liverpool, John Morris University in UK as well. Professor Paul is one of the academicians working extensively in these areas. He's basically an architect and having a specialization in building engineering and management. He's having a long career, teaching career in academics, and he has been involved so many things. He has written extensively on these issues. He has received several medals and for his academic work. He has developed some patents as well. So and one of the special thing is about Professor Paul is he plays saxophone, and he writes Urdu poetry as well. So Paul Saab, we will request you to say a few couplets towards the end of your presentation as well, to tune in with the topic. So these are the three eminent speakers with us. So now I request Professor Paul Saab to start with the fire in urban areas from builder, planner, architect, and from that perspective. So, Paul Saab, now your turn to speak about.
Uh, uh, very warm, hot good morning of the summer. Respected Jan Bindal, R.C. Sharma Saab, Dr. Bal, Dr. Amir, um, and distinguished participants to the webinar. Good morning, and ladies and gentlemen. This is a very interesting topic, and Dr. Amir has given a very interesting long introduction. One has been engaged in this area of fire safety for a long time, and we have learned a lot by working with people like Dr. people like R.C. Sharma Saab. This is very close to our heart, and we have been propagating buildings as our area of interest. And what interest can one pursue if the buildings continue to be unsafe and they are not being looked after? So that's how one looks at it. I'm here to talk about on the life and fire safety in urban context. I try to basically restrict myself in the three areas. I'll start with life safety, talk about fire safety in buildings then, and then bring the two in the context of urban areas. The reason to segregate life safety and fire safety is that actually the objectives are slightly different, and that's how we need to look at. I'll share the details in the subsequent slides in a moment. Just to give you my view on the fire and life safety, etc. I think somewhere in India we have a notion that fire safety is just the code, and you implement that code, and the code is the end of the fire safety. Code is only the regulatory part of the fire safety. But fire safety is a much bigger issue. I mean, it's a, like in civil, you would say that we have this IS 456 for concrete, but the concrete technology is much bigger, and concrete materials, etc., is much bigger. So we are at this stage even basically struggling to even have the code understood, and we think that that's a beginning and end. I think we are grossly mistaken on that understanding. The subject of fire safety in that sense is far away from the reality, and we are stuck with the code, and never our codes will play a role, and they will do their own job. But we need to understand basically how fire and built environment actually interface, and they need to be protected, and that's where I try to build the argument of my ideas. Of course, urban context makes all the more difficult, and the kind of urban context that we have in places like Delhi, Mumbai, or any of the metros in India, or the other developing tier 2, etc. Cities, they'll more or less have the similar problems, but these problems are far too complex and more and more challenging as we go in the future, and we are way behind of what we are looking at. Some of these fire vulnerabilities have been talked about, Janasab, in the beginning, opening remarks. So these numbers are actually mind-boggling. Somebody says 25,000, 22,000 fire casualties in a year, etc. These are not small numbers. I mean, it doesn't catch. I mean, if you just say, if you divide the 20,000 people dying every year divided by 200, and that many jumbo jets actually are crashing every year. And if one jumbo jet crashes, there will be so much of hue and cry, but there's so many people dying. Perhaps we are not realizing the impact of the fire, and we just are very casual about it. It says that every fifth fire death is from India, and 56% of the deaths have taken place in homes, and Asi Sharma would vouch that the most of the fires are happening in the residential areas, and most of the casualties are taking place there. So are we really focused at where the death is taking place, rather than focusing on something where the incidents are far lesser? So that needs a different strategy. Where the deaths are taking place, that's a different strategy altogether. And there is an India risk report every year they find out, and it's one of the top risks that corporates see. But still, we have problems of carrying it further. Residential occupancies continue to be unsafe. Our fire infrastructure is suboptimal, already mentioned by Janasab. And also, we have very inadequate facilities on related to fire treatment. And Dr. Bal would understand that burst management is far more expensive. I mean, even something happens, we are not even able to, the cost of people subsequently is going to be huge. So there is all the reason that we should actually look at fire safety in a more, better sense. Life safety is actually the fundamental principle, or the first principle that one must achieve. While we talk about fire safety as a large subject, the life safety is our first objective, wherein we are looking at safety of the people. We are looking at minimizing danger to life, which means the life is to be protected. Here, our objective is to safely take the people out. That's first issue. And we have, IS 1644, much before national building came in, and it has been there since 1960. And I wonder how many people since 1960, even from architecture, buildings and others, would have actually even looked at IS 1644 since 1960. So, I mean, in terms of documentation, codes, books, etc., there's one part. But if you've not even gone through, if we as a society, even as building industry people, we have not even looked at these codes. I think we are ourselves to be blamed quite a bit for that. In fact, I keep pointing out this IS 1644 of 1960 for the students, because it is one which prescribes how to even design a staircase. So since 1960, we have been saying this is how the staircase is, and still something is going wrong. It means that we have failed to carry that good sense which is recognized and stays there, but we have carried it forward. I think somewhere you also own up that as academia and people have not actually carried it to the education and the people. National Building Code has two parts, fire and life safety. So this life safety is what we actually look at. There is I think section 4 or something in NBC that looks at this, wherein we are looking at requirements of exit, how people will have to are going out, and how the safe evacuation is facilitated without getting into trauma or panic, and looking at prevention of limiting the spread of smoke, which means divide it into smaller parts, which is actually what we refer to as compartmentations, etc. Now, the components for fire safety in terms of buildings, which elements of the buildings actually work, are the protected corridors, passageways, doors, exit routes, protected staircases, ramps. Fire tower is basically where the lift and staircase is separate from a building. It's a standalone, arrangement that exists. So this is actually what protects people. Now, this is facilitated by emergency lighting, detection and alarm system, how quickly you kind of alert people, and so that people can move out. And we also have special problems or the issues to be dealt with in buildings in terms of building elements, wherein we have off late, I think we have a huge kind of interest to keep on bringing false ceiling heights lower and lower, which only makes the smoke to the head height level, reaching much sooner than where if it's a higher, then it'll act as a reservoir. So people have been very, very casual about even the ceiling heights and the compartmentation, which restricts. Now, this area of life safety, I want to highlight, is absolutely within the domain of building design. That's where it is architect's domain. And if this particular aspect is taken care, no matter what happens, people will always be safe. So this is the first principle and first objective, first target that we have to achieve. And if this is done well, most of the problems are taken care. Looking at the fire safety codes, we have National Building Code, which has broadly the kind of sections right from exits, occupant load, how many people, where the exit should be, how the exits have to be arranged, and doorways, corridor. All these descriptions are given fairly elaborate, about 80 pages. But I am very sure reading these 80 pages is probably the least priority for many people. We have an equivalent NFPA 101, which is far more elaborate, but what we have is more or less in sync as far as the spirit of the code is concerned, but the elaboration is slightly different. So to that extent, the code spirit is more or less in the same line. Rest is how we carry it forward in our building. We can't say that in terms of a codal intent we are wrong anywhere, but it's just that we have not been able to carry forward. There are two types of codes. We follow National Building Code, which is a specification of prescriptive code. The world is now moving towards the performance codes, wherein the objective is led, and that's what you achieve. Now we are struggling to even implement specification codes and a National Building Code. Then where will we reach the performance code, where more complex buildings need to be? I think this is a wake-up call that we need to see that how we move to better safety standards. We have some very interesting things. We have definition of high-rise in our code. We have hotels, etc., where this code apply. 500 square meters, more than 500 square meter hotel education building, institutional buildings 9 meters, etc. Now, I wonder, when people look at codes, they will say, have a building of 14.8 meters, 14.5 meters, or mixed occupancy at 450 square meters, or we will have a institutional building maybe half a meter less than 9 meters. So we come across so many such examples where people are so diligently trying to negotiate 15 meters or 500 square meters. It's actually circumventing the application of code. The intent is something else. That's where the whole problem is. The fire is not going to say that I am at 14 meters, I am not going to be that lethal. But people think that, if it is 14.8 meters or 15 meters, the requirement change. That's actually circumventing. And I think that's where we have been rather too irresponsible. And what are the, here we are not even looking at what are the good practices. We are trying to avoid to even implement this code. And the other thing that in the code we also need to understand, if you look at this 1, 2, 3, 4 3 bullet points that I mentioned where the code applies, but that's not where the deaths are taking place. Deaths are taking place in the residential areas which are outside this. So even if we are trying to negotiate, etc., fair enough, we must do it. But in the other areas, they are completely left out. Which code is it applying there? And how, not even good practices. So I think where the maximum deaths are taking place, where most calls are coming, we have actually ignored them. We are not even reached there as yet. That's what my personal feeling is. And remember, this is only minimum requirement. Minimum is a bare minimum that should be done. But we are struggling even to implement that minimum requirement. I think there's some different kind of a strategy that is required, and that too only for few buildings which come into the domain of NOCs and other thing. Rest of the buildings, the 80% of Delhi, for example, would be out of this. We have 3 areas: prevention for life safety and protection. The prevention is basically that the incident does not take place, and protection is what happens afterwards. That is actually what is looking at in terms of fire extinguishers, downcomers, etc. Now, most of the NOCs, Dr. Sharma sir would vouch that we are spending more time and investment on the fire protection systems, not even maintaining them subsequently. So our focus is largely on the protection, whereas prevention and the life safety is rather less addressed. In terms of, I would like to mention here for the audience that most of the codes that we have, they have assumptions which are extrapolations, which are unverified. They are extrapolated. For example, in tenability, this is how people will die in smoke. There is no validity. So if we say that apply a code and minimum is also not applied, the minimum is based on an assumption on monkeys and rats that experiments have taken. So that assumption is also not validated. So if you don't even do that, you're going to have a problem. And we have the egress speed, etc., where we have a problem of how fast people move. But this is based on population, which was maybe 30 years back the studies have done. So our code and the minimum codal provisions are not that validated. So not to accept the code is a bit of a problem. Urban peculiarities, we have very important areas. Now, if you look at this fire and life safety issue and the code, etc., what are the kind of problems that we have? We have different states, different local bodies, and everybody is trying to recreate their own different norms for fire hazard. Now, how does the definition of a 15-meter Delhi and maybe another 18 meters in Mumbai or any other place should that be accepted? Because fire is not the region-specific phenomena. So why can't there be universalization? So everywhere people are trying to find reasons which are not, probably in my understanding, very well rooted in the principles of fire safety. We talk about in various platforms for relaxations on the codes locally, that this is not a local situation, etc. But these local conditions have been are being propagated or promoted, but not the strictness of application, that local capacity to fight is less. So why should it not be strict? Rather, we are saying, oh, this land is a problem, that problem, but we are only talking about the local condition. Why not make it more stricter? Because suppose, say, a particular town does not have a capacity, make it more strict. We will not look at, we are not looking at economic impact on the cities. We have access problem, unregulated clusters, or uncontrolled developments, traffic unpredictability. Now, all this makes things more difficult, whereas the fire brigade availability is increasingly getting short. We have almost 6 lakh firemen to be made available in this country, and less than maybe 40% of total fire load. So we have the strictness not being implemented, local condition related moderation towards the relaxation. Urban development is creating more and more chaos. Fire departments is becoming increasingly less resourceful because there are no investments. So where are we headed? We are only headed for something more complex. Just to understand, there are all these 42 odd areas, 40 odd areas, which the paradigm of fire safety looks at, right from proximity to fire department to the risers, downcomers, smoke barriers, emergency program, they all gamut of all this. Now, and out of that, a very small subset of it is NOC and the code. Mind you, all this needs to be done to be able to say how safe we are. Now, in terms of urban context, monitoring, etc., we now need to start looking at. We have this problem of approval monitoring, but the scale at which the urbanization happens and the manpower we have, one has to start looking at some technology-based approval and monitoring systems. And regulatory requires some good practices as well. Not the code alone needs to be implementation. Good practices ke aisa nahi karna hai. That also needs to be simultaneously hammered. And this kind of a thing of 15 meter versus 14.8 meter, these are kind of, basically circumventing the law. Not a good practice. Not a good practice. Instead of 15-seat restaurant, if there is a law, then make it 48 seats. But For fire, 48 and 50 is the same. Where is the difference? So there is a code need and good spirit of code versus the circumventing. On the other side, we have a good practice, and only establishment with fire safety licenses can be examined. Others are out of the gamut. So we need to start looking at in urban areas, how do we really look at it? Can we match this gap of 3,000 fire station versus 8,500 that we probably will take many years, and many lives will be lost. In terms of urban context, again, responsibilities are, as I mentioned, for the minimum requirement, they are shirked. And we also have a reliability of the systems. These systems are provided in the buildings, but the maintenance, etc., as nobody is aware of that, nobody knows. So we have a problem of functional reliability, that if you switch on, whether it will work, and the other one is whether it will perform. And public needs to be sensitized. In fact, there is a big problem about culture of safety and fire safety particularly. Again, we have a problem with understanding of electrical system. I try to put it in terms of electrical safety in terms of two things. One is the electrical system, and the other one is electrical appliance safety. If my refrigerator is faulty, that's my problem. If the electrical system is a problem, it's the building or apartment owner's problem. And so the two responsibilities are different. And we see that in the hospitals very clearly, the fire in the electrical system versus a refrigerator, these are two different strategies that they call for. In urban context, let me share with you one of the last slides, that urban multi-disaster, fire and earthquake is almost a reality. I'll just the three pictures here. On the right is a building in Gujarat. This is one of the lanes in Delhi where one of the fires took place in the hotel that was mentioned in the beginning. And this is another one of the hospitals having gas fold in the setback areas. God forbid if this building cracks, it's literally torn apart. What will happen to the gas and other electrical systems? They will all explode. So this multi-hazard will happen. If we're looking at these figures, is a reality. And are we really looking at that kind of a thing? I think there is a need to look at that. Now, finally, coming to the what do we do in urban areas? My understanding is urban risk, fire risk in urban areas need a mapping for the kind of urban infrastructure we have and the building characteristics that we have. And then, like on a GIS or something, we need to start working. Maybe NIDM should take a lead in there, unless they are already started working on it. They are working. This is something which needs to be mapped. And then local micro area specific strategies are to be done, or rather than, the preference based. Coming to the way forward, I think we need to think differently for matching inadequacies of fire resource fighting resources and to find a solution in an urban sprawl. The hitherto, whatever we have been doing, I think that there's the concluding, sir.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
The Codal provisions have a limitations. Please do understand this is minimum based on unvalidated assumptions. Don't think that it's going to work. We have a huge problem of safety culture, owner responsibilities. Something has to start driving rather than implementation dependent fire and life safety. We still haven't made the cost of fire safety in the public domain. And if the evidence-based cost benefit is brought to the notice of the people, maybe people will try to start understanding. Finally, time for one nation, one regulation, transparent, region-specific moderation can take place, but one nation, one regulation is going to make a much difference, and the technology-based independent implementation is possible. This should all be done. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to share my thoughts, and if there are some questions, I will be happy to take them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul Sahab. Please stop this screen sharing. Yeah, thank you so much. So it's a wonderful presentation. Lot of things you have elaborated, and definitely we are on back foot as far as fighting the fires in urban context is concerned. So we have to be slightly more vigilant from the beginning. It starts from site planning to designing, architectural design, to engineering design, to execution, to maintenance, to every aspect of building and planning. So we have to be extra cautious on these aspects. So now I request RC Sharma Saab to take us forward and tell us how to counter the hazard which is there, and what are the mitigation practices, and how the firemen are looking this hazard, and what are the challenges and difficulties they are facing in countering the fire in urban context. So by now we have those questions already in place. So Sharma Saab, this is now your turn.
Oh, sorry, some problem. Can you give to Mr. Bahel? I'll just let me find out my this thing. You can
Bahel
Bahel
Saab,
take over.
Bahel Saab, are you there? Dr. Bahel? Please. Now, Sharma Saab is coming slightly later on, so you can take over and tell us about your experiences of fire and life safety in urban context. So you are definitely playing a big role in that trauma center. You must be receiving a lot of challenges of encountering the patients, and that level of things, your experiences in LNJP, and your general experiences, because I could not find a better person than you. So you can take over for 15-20 minutes, and then Sharmaji will come again.
Perfectly right, sir. My dear learning faculty and my dear participants and friends, I'll be talking on a very simple thing like fire, and that too in the hospital scenario. I may talk about the external fires also, and after that we'll dwell on both the internal and external disasters as it's relevant to the hospital scenario. Then we'll talk about the prevention, mitigation, and your field management triage. Uh, do we have that scenario is okay? Yeah, it's okay now.
Now, fine, sir. All right. Please go ahead. Thanks
Now,
for
my purview will be to discuss about health risk management during and after fire incidents. We're very clear we will be talking about during and after the fire incidents, whichever they occur in the remotest area or in the urban area or in the hospital itself. Yeah. So my agenda will be basically fire as a disaster. That has been well covered up. I may not dwell on that. Then we'll dwell on external and internal disaster as regards the hospital scenario. Then our main things are we don't want fires to happen and then give the treatment. So prevention strategies, they're a must, and I'll dwell on that thing also. Then mitigation, how we can decrease the thing, and then the management of the fire incident and what is happening to the people, how we are going to triage them and give the treatment onto the field and the hospital casualty. Then later on also in the burns and the plastic department, we'll talk about the importance of ABC assessment. That's basically you want to save the individual, so you look up the things which are killing the person first. So we say airway kills the person first, then the breathing, and then the circulation. We'll dwell on that thing also. Then naturally some patients need to be transferred to a burn center, bigger setup, a tertiary care unit. So we have to know which patients have to be transferred to that area. Then late effects and the management. Late effects are your burns and contractions. We'll discuss more. Am I audible, sir? Am I audible?
You are
Yes, sir,
audible.
yes, sir.
Please continue.
Screen is okay? Yeah.
Everything is okay. Please continue.
Yeah. Then we are just trying to give you overall risk ranking. For the last 3 years, it has been done. We saw the fire was in the eighth position. Now it has come down to the 3rd position. So we are having fire incidences increasing day in, day out. And it's about 25,500 fires per year. And about 60% of the people die each day because of fire. And the huge property loss. And much more important thing is people have cited very nice, it was wonderful. We have said the electricity is the most common, and very important thing, all these are preventable. And if a person dies because of preventable thing, then that is not good. Our activities are not okay. We should improve on us. Okay. Then I'll try to discuss the external disaster, internal disaster. External disasters means when the fire has occurred outside the hospital as such. And when it has occurred outside the hospital, hospital will be dealing as any other agency. As any other agency. So NDM has given a very nice national disaster management guidelines on medical preparedness and mass casualty management in 2007. It covers most of the things, but the main thing is implementation. Then internal disaster. The hospital could be involved because of fire also. We'll give an example also. We all know that Amri Hospital. Then the fire and smoke. Bomb blast can occur in this. Terrorist activities, hostages. Buildings can collapse down on the hospital vicinity. Or hospital, or utility failure. This is a very important thing. Power crisis. You might have learned in 2011 we had not grid failure. Whenever we have these grid failures, there was a blackout in our city for about 12 hours. And can you imagine running the hospital on that basis is very tough. Our ventilators are out, major things are not being done, the sterilization is thrown here and by. It requires a lot of standby efforts, and it was not very good. Then we can have water shortages also. I'm in the trauma center for 3 days. Some or other, some water connecting pipe has bursted out. So these all hazards can come down. How we can extinguish the fire without water. So these all things have to be taken into account. Food poisoning can occur in that premises. Hazardous material release. They are all chemicals. Chemicals can cause fire and cause smokes, and that too vapors, which are very much injurious to us. Then we have radiation hazards. Radiation departments are there. Nuclear fallouts can occur. Biological hazards, the bacteria, etc., which are grown on the petri dish, they can come out. So we have many, many more things other than that. And they are all down to our institutions. Now, we're coming down to external disaster. We all remember very bad times, There's the worst fire tragedy in the recent Indian history. We had a Bhar cinema fire. Occurred on 13th June, unlucky day, 1997, at the Bhar cinema when they were getting a premiere screening of picture Border. 59 people had died and 103 were seriously injured. And why they were injured? Because people started running in there. And because of stampede, these people have died. Because of asphyxial, suffocating death. The fire broke at 5:10 p.m. At least 48 fire tenders were placed in service. And at 5:20, they got the information, and within an hour, they were able to bring down the fire. Later, the dead and the injured were rushed to the nearby institutions. We have the All India Medical Institution and Safdarjung Hospital. What we made out was the fire exposed the poor safety standard at the public place in the country's capital. Can you imagine? Country's capital and such a poor safety standard. The court came down to the picture. It was first said that the lack of the trauma center could have resulted in so many deaths. They ruled out that lack of a trauma center is not the cause of death. Then delay in the rescue. The traffic jams were there. Fire tenders were not able to reach on the side. Cars, they were all put on here and there, not a good parking. The ambulances could not come. And the ambulances even, they don't have the oxygen cylinder. What can you treat and how you can treat the burns or the smoke victims unless you have the oxygen with you? Then the victims were brought in the cars, etc. And they were brought to the burn casualty. They should be brought to the general casualty, where they should be able to get along all the facets of treatment, not in the burns casualty, which deals only with the burns casualty. So many clauses came down the picture. So what we learned lessons were fast transfer of the patient to the hospital should occur. And we should have very good crowd management. It's always a problem, I know. We have to dwell on it and find certain ways out. Traffic control the fire tenders and ambulances. That has to go ahead. Then transfer to the appropriate facility, not a burn worth a casualty center. And you should also, I don't know whether we can do or not, make use even the disaster to avoid the stampede. I do remember we were shown certain pictures of Japan when there was earthquake, tsunami, and the radiation hazard. People were on the line at even at very many places, means they were not a stampede, they were not running here and there. So people have to get that culture. We have to build that culture. This is the fire incident inside the hospital premises. Ambry Hospital, we all know, in Calcutta in 2011 it occurred, and 90 people died. 90 is a huge number, and there were just 166 patients in that 7-story hospital. And what has come down to by the analysis was the basement was full of inflammable articles. All that thing which was not being used with the hospital, and they thought it is not proper, they are dumped down there, paper, cotton, matrix chemicals. Then fire alarm, that was not active. Why it was not active? Because a few weeks or months earlier, they found that the alarming occurs with a little smoke, they inactivated the system. If you inactivate the fire alarm system, naturally it will be very bad. You won't be able to pick up the fire. Then fire extinguishers, they never worked, which were kept in the basement. Means today they were non-functional. Fire sprinklers, they were inactive. So what was there? There was nothing. Late evacuation, the patients were told that nothing will happen, don't worry, we'll take the things off, जैसे हम बोलते हैं ना, सब ठीक हो जाएगा. There's nothing. They were kept in the premises for 1.5 hours after the start of the fire. Central AC system, electrical supply system were not stopped. If they're not stopped, carbon monoxide smoke will circulate among the AC ducts and will be all on all the floors. Then signages, proper signages would need to be there. They were not missing. They were not there. Then they had an external facade of toughened glass. So people, they wanted to come out, they couldn't because of that. And there was no escape route, such a, I don't know how hospitals are built. You might have seen so many pictures that people are hung by the ropes and they are rescued to that. There was all violation of fire and safety rules. So these things do occur. We don't want that it should reoccur. So we have to take all these things in consideration in the premises in which we work. The uniqueness of the hospital is they're the lifeline of the society. The occupants here have very peculiarities. They cannot run, they cannot get out of the bed, they're critically ill, physically incapable, and they're in extreme pain, agony, and they cannot make their own decisions. Some are unconscious, some are being sedated by drugs, and some are in the life support things. So we have to provide their evacuation. And doctors and paramedics, they're always extremely busy in saving the lives of the patients admitted. So this is the uniqueness of the hospital that has to be taken into consideration. A study done in the fire code violation, the hospital showed that top fire safety violations were there. Extension cord daisy chains, you might see many equipments required to be plugged in. If they're required to be plugged in, you should have your system. One single plug is there, you add on to that sockets and plugs. And when you cause all that thing, the wires get heated and there's a sparking in fire. Fire door compliance, the fire door compliance is also not there. They're not locked, they're not latched also. And sometimes what we find, they are in mutilated condition. There's a hole in the fire door. Fire doors, if they have all these things, it doesn't serve the purpose of a fire door. Then fire exit obstructions. You may see when you run away from these areas when there are fire, all the staircases, etc., there's a heap of furniture, equipments, beds, other things which are non-functional. Inflammable items, they are heaped at undesirable places. Nowadays, in the time of the COVID, you can imagine so many hand sanitizers, they will be thrown here and there. Then gas cylinders and the medical oxygen compliance is not done. At least 20 feet should be the distance from any combustible atom which is placed close to gas cylinders. And we don't have the portable fire extinguishers. Or if they are there, they're not filled up. Nobody's looked after that. And they are not the proper type, they're not put in the proper places, then very difficult to venture that areas. So see, blocked assist for fire tenders. If the fire tenders cannot come down to hospital premises, how the fire can be extinguished? Okay, fine. This is the ICU overloaded plugs. All the ventilator you see the warmers and suction pumps, and they are all switched on to a single socket, so they can have overloading, of course, and then the faulty wiring. See how bad the wiring system is and how much overloaded it is bound to get sparks, bound to have fire. Blocked obstacles. See the staircase. We have all the nuisance on this area. One cannot run through it. And if there's a fire, there's a darkness, people are just going to have stampede, which is clearly or every time we have noticed that. Then fire extinguisher, they're missing, or they're not filled up, or they're not maintained in the order in which they should be. See the poor housekeeping. If the poor housekeeping is there, you can imagine what can happen to the hospital. Then we have to have a fire prevention strategies. So what is there? We have to have some detector, something which can detect the smoke or the fire. And nowadays we have very many good things like your one, we have carbon monoxide detector also, methane detectors, CNG detectors. Install them. Have the fire alarm, have both the club together and have an automatic system. That automatic system there, and you have a media to speak to the people, then the things are very good. You should be able to have a good control of the fire if it does occur.
Hey, sir.
Yahanji, sir.
Yeah, another one more speaker also. If you possible, can you please conclude as early as possible? You go ahead.
Should I be very concise, you mean?
No, sir. Can you please
try
conclude?
try to finish it because we have time constraint.
Yeah, okay. So we were talking about these things, detection, alarm, and the system to be worked up, then the compartmentation which has to be there, and the fire safety. So we have to be prepared for all those things. So this is the way we can go ahead. We have to have a good evacuation plan, and everybody should be aware of the evacuation plan. Where you are, if this man is here, there has to be no panic. Don't have any panic, and he should be able to get along from the designated pathways and come down the assembly zone, and from there he can go out. In case of the fire, patient or persons have to be removed which are in the immediate vicinity of the fire. Then they have to go beyond the fire doors. And if we have all the full floor being occupied with the fire, you have to go to the lower down and then on to the assembly point. And from the assembly point, we can designate the serious patients on to a networked, good tertiary care hospital. And if we have other patients which are not the serious in the local hospital, they can be shuttled down. And we have a difficulty, DC of that area, who's the nodal officer, he should be contacted. CDMOs, police persons, they have to be onto the picture. So what we have to do is we have to give a maximum relief to the maximum number of the potential survivors. Triage has to come down, have a graded approach. Graded approach, we'll talk about first aid and the standardized therapeutic menus, which has to be done. So first and foremost is search and then do a prioritization. That is triage the patient, means whoever requires a good advanced treatment, he has to be treated earlier. Give them the first aid there and transport to the nearby vicinity and have a good definite treatment plan. So this is the way of triage. The patient enters here. We separate the dead peoples and the walking wounded. So have a very small number, say about 30% of people who will have to be focused and provide good care to those people. Yeah, this is the triage which is usually followed. 32 can do. 30 is the respiratory rate. If it's more than 30, it means very serious. And 2 is
Dr. Pahal, you have to please summarize it. We have to
okay.
go for another presentation.
So these are priorities. Stop the burning process. This is the means you will crawl and crouch, and then if the body has caught fire, the clothes are there. Have the fire blanket which is shown. Okay. Yeah. Then you can think of the carbon dioxide. These are type the burns, first degree, second degree, third degree. So you have to care of those areas. And very important thing is do not touch the burnt area. Remove the sticking clothing. Don't burst the blisters. Don't apply lotions. Don't use a cotton fluffy material. Otherwise, very difficult to take them. Never understate the seriousness of that and transfer these patients as early. When you talk about the operation theater, we have to have low oxygenation, number one. Ignition sources should be less, and we should not use the inflammable items. We're talking about this. And this damage control operation means light has gone in the operation theater. What has to be done? You have to close the things. See in the right side. The abdomen is just closed by certain, you'll find impervious layer, and we send him to ICU. And when the patient becomes okay, we can take him back. This is the way of estimating the burnt area. You might have heard 90%, 40%. So how know the seriousness of the patients. Okay. So these electrical chemical burns, they're very serious, and carbon monoxide is very important. And during that, you have to look out for hyperbaric oxygen therapy, and that's only available in Dr. Ramano Loya Hospital. Send the patient there, and they can be treated well for carbon monoxide poisoning. Transfer the patient if they are having more than 10% burn surface area. These are scars and contracture which can occur. Scars, you have to have split thickness graft. These are various grafts which are given, and we're able to keep the things pretty good, and we can have the same texture of the skin to which the patient has prior to the fire. These are the various things which we can do in case of the fire victims, and naturally they have to be made a part of the society at a later time. So we have to go ahead with psychosocial support also. So this is the way we go ahead. And naturally, in the COVID times, we have to have protective gears, and they're also equally important. Whenever I know when the fire people come down, they don't have the helmets, they don't have the things onto the front of the chest, and they don't have fire retardant things wearing, and they unnecessarily expose themselves. Number of times, for example, in the radiology, we have a fire, people came down without that. The smoke was there, injurious chemicals were there. So what I wish, our people, fire people, should protect them. Until they protect them, they cannot keep the systems in order. So we have to learn from all the areas and implement the things. Implementation is very important. And off and on surveying the system, inspecting the system, so that we are able to have the fires curtailed. Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bahal. It's
Thanks,
wonderful to have you always in our programs and the webinars like this. It's quite nice presentation describing the fire hazards in hospitals and other environments. So it's always a pleasure to listen to you. You have quite extensively explained the fire risk mitigation thing in different environments, including hospitals, and various measures to be taken for protection post fire. So thank you so much. Now, Shiva Saab, are you ready?
Okay, next. You can go to the next screen.
Okay.
Yeah. So, in fact, a lot has been said by Dr. Paul and Dr. Bahel also. So, I'll try to have my views depending upon my practical exposure which I had during my about 40 years of service, and what I consider is more important. See, occurrence of fire, this can occur anywhere, wherever we have got combustible materials and some possible source of ignition. A new building which is issued NOC by fire department, maybe 10-15 days back, can have fire. We had incidents in the past also where things were just going that way. So we can have these problems, and wherever we do have these two things, possibly things can go wrong. Electricity, as you know, is one of the biggest cause, and wherever human beings we are present together, that can cause a problem. So severity and spread of fire will depend on internal fire load, whatever materials we are having inside the building, and the design of the building. This part is related to our Dr. Paul. I mean, how the building is designed, whether it is properly ventilated in case of fire, compartmentation, all this taken care. If that part is taken care, we don't expect that people will be losing the life, and we can save to the extent that yes, fire will not be able to spread, and people will be able to get out. Built-in protection facilities can help in timely intervention through manual or automatic means and further help in life safety and property safety. So this is what most important factor. We can't depend on the fire service even if they are the next door, because it takes time for them to come to inform them. They come down and they raise their hoses through the buildings, through the stairs. It takes a lot of time. Wastage of time is there. But if things are built in into the building, whatever maybe small hose reels or wetterizer down cover, whatever facilities are normally Dr. Paul has been discussing, if they are available inside a building, I consider, I felt it, I can say with authority, they are much, much better than a fire brigade available next door. So only thing is they should be functionable. Next please. Now, this is what, this is the real incidents which we have been talking about. AMRI hospital, 93 people died. Uh, all of them died because of suffocation, smoke, inhalation, and suffocation. That means if we were able to control the spread of smoke into the building, the fire was in the basement, how the smoke went to the upper floors. If that area could be controlled, that is related to the design of the building, design of the internal facilities, the shafts, the way they were left open. Now here is the biggest, cause of that death. The cause of death is smoke in all these cases. Everybody in the MRI hospital died because of smoke. We had Siddharth Hotel fire in Delhi, 1986. 37 people died. Each one of them died because of smoke. They could not get out. One of the door was available, very good staircase was there, they could not get out. People who remained inside, kept everything closed, they could survive. But those who came out of the room and tried to get out were trapped in the corridors and could not get out. They were involved in fire. They all of them died. None of them died because of fire. It was all by smoke. Then we had Upar Cinema, Dr. Behal has mentioned. I like to slightly differ on this count also because I was very much there from the very beginning in this fire. And the cause of death was again that transformer was there on the ground floor. If the opening of the transformer door was outside on the outer face of the wall, nothing would have happened. The transformer caught fire and oil came inside on the stilt floor, and a car caught fire which was in front of the transformer. So if the transformer door, it was having a door sill, probably oil would not have come below the car. Things would not have become that serious so suddenly. Then the major thing was that the smoke from this fire found its way into the stairs and to the upper floors, and the staircase was rendered useless. That was the main problem. People came through the staircase initially, but subsequently they went back, locked in the toilet. And one of the fire behind the main cinema hall, first floor, people were found trapped there. There was a huge glass. People could not open, they could not break open the glass. So smoke venting was the biggest problem here. Everybody died because of that. 14 people were taken out from the one of the toilet, and second toilet was on the near the balcony. It was not connected internally. People inside the toilet were saved. Now what I want to convey, it is the smoke which has found its way to different areas, and not lack of openable windows, because the centrally air conditioned building, the cinema was centrally air conditioned, it was not having the openable windows. So if they had openable windows, probably so many people would not have died. And people tried to come down, but then no one had experience to come down the stairs. People came down, went back again. Many of them, they started again and came down without any problem. So that is the drills and not knowing how to do and what to do. That was another problem. But major problem was here again smoke, which killed all of them. Lal Kuan Delhi fire 57, Bhawana factory fire 17, then Arpit hotel fire. They were trapped above this thing. Means of escape becomes the most important factor in a building. If they are designed properly, properly placed, having the doors, fire doors are excellent. Even the normal doors will hold the fire and smoke for about 15-20 minutes, and that's good enough for people to get out. If the doors are not there and they are not really, they had large openings on the top and bottom, then is the problem. So Anaj Mandi fire, Rani Jhansi Road, we had 43 people dying. Well, these are the things, and most of them everywhere, we had people dying because of smoke inhalation. So the buildings have to be built in such a manner that we have got smoke venting or smoke management facility that should be functional. We, the fire brigade people, also when we reach the fire scene, we find it is full of smoke. So first we have to break open windows and doors and all that to gain entry and then to fight the fire. If we are not able to do that, they keep on throwing water onto this, maybe into the smoke, maybe in the beginning of the fire. They are not able to enter. Now, the smoke management or smoke venting is the most important factor which has to be built into the system. It is to be designed in the building. When we talk about urban area, I think that is the most important, one of the important thing to do. Next, please. Next slide. Yeah. So whatever might be the cause of fire, the common factor in the almost all the lives lost was smoke. It is true. It is thus clear that smoke is the main killer. Next, please. Smoke management ventilation. I just mentioned the same thing, that hot gases, they will be filling the whole of the area. If people are about to get out, if they are smoke is there in the corridor, they cannot get out. So now when there is a fire, smoke is going to be the first thing, and all the system which we have mentioned, smoke alarm, fire alarm, these are there available in the building, no problem. If they are functional, they give an alarm. But then we have to, somebody has to tell that there is a fire on that floor, people should please get out from these areas. So that's how an announcement is necessary, the public announcement system. So these things become necessary whenever there is a fire. So availability of these things and using them is most important. But the two factors again I impress upon, even over and above the firefighting facilities, I am talking about these two things. If they are available, people will not be trapped. If smoke is vented out, they will have the visibility, they can get out of the building, and probably timely venting of smoke can allow them extra time. That is what, and if that is continued, then fire brigade people can come in and they can also, otherwise they end up in using so much of water that they cause more damage than by water than during fighting fire. So that is what practically I have seen in many of the fire incidents. Next slide, please. Venting for preventing fire spread. Now, this is what we do. When we talk about that, one example I like to give, one bonded warehouse fire in Okhla. It was about very long, about say 400-500 meter long shed, about 30 meter long wide, and it has fire was on about say there had 26 doors in that. Fire started on somewhere in third or fourth door. Internally, fire spread to whole area. Now, compartmentation, what I was talking about with ventilation. If there's this long storage area was having some normal ventilators, openable or automatic, maybe exhaust fans, probably things would not spread to whole of the, maybe more than half of the shed was involved in fire. We could have really seen that. And one of the recent study in the Kiwi, Western, New Zealand, a storage fire, 8 million loss in Wellington, New Zealand, in the 2014. They found that need for ventilation to be a tactical consideration to prevent spread of fire. Now, tactical consideration is something how to control the fire. Now, if ventilation is carried out, you have got hot gases going out, things will not spread horizontally, and you can gain a fire brigade can enter from that side and take care of the things. Next, please. Now, possibility of smoke venting by fire service as tactical operation. Now, this is a very big subject for the fire service, and normally some of the fire brigade people, they have got some portable your exhaust smoke exhaust fans and all that. But is it really possible in those conditions when fire is already going on, corridors are full? Where do you place the fans? Where do you throw out the smoke? These may be useful. Maybe some basement is on fire, you can push some air from somewhere, gain little bit entry, but they cannot be brought into use if they are not this smoke management or smoke venting is not built into the system. I have seen in variable incident. AIMS, there was a fire. When you enter the AIMS, there is a, on the left side, there is about a basement building. In that, there was a fire. And in that, I could see that it was difficult to locate the seat of fire. It took about 3 and 4 hours. I was undergoing this MBA program in IP University. On a Sunday, this fire happened. And it took about more than an hour to locate the fire, which was in a UPA in one of the end of the corner of the building. And it took about 1 hour, more than an hour to locate the fire, which was just enough to be controlled by a bucket. So this is what the importance of smoke management or smoke venting. Do we provide this in every building, especially the air-conditioned building? They're more earlier, older buildings had this, but now we are not really taking care of that. And wherever it is provided, we have to see that people know about this and how to use it. And automation, which area is the fire, which area to ventilate, where to supply air, make up air, so many things are there. It's a very big subject, but yes, that is the very important factor, and to be told to all the architects and structural engineers so that they discuss it, how it is going to function, and plan it in the beginning so that they are able to, fire brigade is able to use it and people are able to escape and they don't get the smoke punishment in case of fire. The fire brigade people, when they come, I told you the same thing, that they also have to difficult to enter the smoke. You can have a breathing apparatus, okay, you can brave the smoke, but how you see the things, that means you need a thermal imaging camera costing about maybe few lakhs rupees. So every fireman going on a scene, you can't provide all these things. So smoke venting, if it is done, if it is built into the system, everything is going to be controlled to that extent. Next, please. Now this is educating architects about need to build in. This is what I have mentioned in my this thing. If they are able to build into the design of the building, all these things, you can do it when you're designing a building. This cannot be done subsequently. And this is what, in the urban context, if we are able to take care of these things for the building which are coming up in future or which are the new structures, probably we can take care of that. But this area, as I say, is urban. Urban is not only the high-rise building. We do have, as Dr. Paul was mentioning in the beginning, number of fire incidents, number of deaths occurring in Delhi also. We get hardly about less than 100 fires in high-rise building in a year, but we get more than, say, last year we had about 25,000 calls, and in that most of it is the calls are in the low-rise building, which do not come in the purview of the NOC from fire department and all that. Shops, your congested area, your your business, your residential area, kitchen fires, cylinder fires, leakage cylinder. We get about 900, more than 900 accidents every year of LPG cylinder blast and leakage. I mean, it's such mind-boggling. Awareness comes into that. So it is not only when we talk about urban is a built-in the high-rise building. It is the other area also which we have to take care. Next, please. Fire alarm and suppression system. Now, these two things are most important. Whatever Dr. Paul has mentioned about 40, 50 areas of, we have to take care of that. Only two areas I am impressing upon the most important. If you are having the fire alarm system, so that there is a smoke, you get an alarm. Somebody has to react from the fire control room and see what has happened, where it has happened, and then smoke management system must come in operation. If that thing is available, probably then we are there. Probably we can think of saving the life. We can think of fire brigade getting into the building at the right time, quickly, and able to control the fire with a minimum use of water. Otherwise, they end up in throwing or a lot of water and causing damage due to water much more than they're caused by fire at times. Now, built-in fire suppression system is considered more reliable than the fire station available next door. Now, this is, I'm talking about the sprinkler system. Sprinkler system is something which is a pipeline going in the ceiling at ceiling level, and every about 3 meters or so, 3 or 4 meters, we do have a sprinkler head, which the bulb bursts at about 68 degrees Celsius. That means the fire will be detected by this sprinkler head, and it will start spraying water exactly onto the seat of fire. It is not that everything in the building is going to come in operation. only one sprinkler which is on the seat, above the seat of fire, will come in operation. So 40 or 50 liters of water per minute. Even if 2 or 3 sprinklers come in operation at a time, maybe say you get about 150 or 200 liters water per minute. If you have got about 5,000 liter tank on the terrace, I think it is good enough for 25 minutes. And mind it, whatever the experience shows is that the sprinkler system, wherever it has been installed, it has not allowed the fire to get out of the room or premises where it is started. The room where the fire started, it was confined to the room. Either it was controlled or confined to the room. Well, so efficient system is there. And then why not to have this system? One is that for the building, high-rise building, other building, I advocate that this particular system must be available in all the buildings which are inaccessible to the fire department. Like we have got congested areas in Delhi, we have got Sadar Bazaar, we have got areas where we have got very markets are there. We have got in Shadra, we have got in Trans Yamuna area, a lot many colonies are there. Our Karol Bagh area, we have got these congested markets, 3 to 4 floors, full of all materials, highly combustible, but they are low-rise. So-called low-rise, they are 15 meters or maybe 16 meters also unauthorized construction, but the rule does not say sprinkler should be provided there. Now we have to look into this area, which is very important. Utility of this particular system, we have to conduct some tests on. I'm over than sure that this is going to work even with the gravity. Having the pump, having the electricity, having the other thing, underground tank, well, that is good for the buildings which are being proposed, which are newly constructed building. But these areas which are old, I'm sure, because large number of fires are happening there, this type of facility, sprinkler with a gravity operated system facilities, is going to be taken care. I'm very sure about it. And once building is occupied, the building evacuation plan, awareness, knowing the facility which is there inside, which way to go, exit signage is there or not, what are the doors which are probably not locked, knowing about it, hose reel, availability of the hose reel, how to use it, fire extinguisher. These are the basic things which are required to be known by everybody, and conducting the drills. Again, these are the part of the system. But I'm trying to enforce, trying to impress upon the avoiding the deaths which has occurred in the past, in the so glaring incidents in the past. In Delhi also, I had been a part of that, and I'm sure that if the smoke management is taken care of, 99% people in the fire incidents are dying because of smoke. We can, if not eliminate, 100% reduce it to large extent. Next slide, please. Well, that's what I already mentioned about these things. Sprinklers used for fixed suppression system. In this system, there is one fire service inlet that is connected to the main pipeline inside, and there is a connection given outside the building. So fire brigade people can connect their hose to that inlet. They need not enter the building at all. We have lost so many people, fire brigade people, well, when the building collapse took place, 3 or 4 fire officers in Bombay Fire Brigade. We had 8 of our people involved in a Kirtinagar fire, where they were trying to shutter off one of the door in the basement. People said some people are sleeping there, and the building collapsed. So now, if the buildings like this, they are having the sprinkler system, fire brigade people need not take the risk to enter the building. And if they connect their hose onto the fire service inlet outside the building,
Sharma sir.
then even, I'll take just 2 minutes more. Yeah, so this is going to be something very important system. I've got some few slides to show you quickly. Next, please. Vigyan Bhavan fire, effectiveness sprinkler I mentioned. Yes, next, please. We had 5 places in Delhi where this happened, and sprinkler was provided in the building. All the 4 or 5 places, Palika Bazaar, sales tax building, Taj Hotel, the hotel in the Taj Palace Hotel, and we had in our government this secretariat building. 4 places, fire took place, sprinkler was operated, and it remained confined to that room. So this is the practical experience. And the external ladders, we find that ladders, people think that's a very good, excellent way to fight the fires. maybe only in few cases, not every time. So this is not the solution. Solution is internal system. Next, please. Now this is the Vigyan Bhavan fire, very typical. You can understand quickly how the smoke venting can really help or does not help. Now this is the fire was in the corner room on the facing us, the corner left side, in the middle of the slide, and you can see the smoke billowing out of the terrace. The hot gases on that corner room on the second floor, which was on fire, that smoke is coming from the ceiling, tar felting, which is burning on the top. At this time, the conference of DGs and IGs was going on from all over the country in that hall when the fire took place in the evening at about 4 o'clock. Next, please. You see, the smoke is not coming from anywhere on that hall where the fire took place, because all the windows are sealed because of security reason. These 3 windows, which are open, 4 windows, they're in the common area in between here, where people used to come out after the lecture and used to have some tea, coffee or something. So here, sitting area, smoke is coming out from, fire brigade is throwing water here. It can be seen they are not fighting fire, they are throwing water into the smoke. Firefighting was being done internally. I was there through the corridor. We were trying to reach the place. Next, please. Now this is the thing as a later stage when you could see the flames coming from this, because hot gases and smoke is not able to get out of the building, and it was coming out of the ground floor entrance level of the Vigyan Bhavan. Next, please. Now this is the scene from outside. There were 3 ladders, tall ladders. Everybody, because all DGs, IGs, they were there. They say the fire is on the terrace. Upar jal raha hai, upar pani feko. And all the water resources was wasted. It was directed onto the ceiling. And that's what we did not use that for firefighting inside the building. It was all good for photograph, but not really used for firefighting. Next, please. Now this is the main hall. After about 8 hours of the 7.5 hours of the fire, this hall caught fire. Hot gases came into this. There was about 20 feet high false ceiling, which was getting filled by smoke and hot gases. And after that long time, the structure collapsed because it could not sustain its own weight. And then fire traveled to the main hall. Next slide, please. Now this is the common connection between the main hall and that hall which was on fire on the other side. You can imagine this was the passage for hot gases to come to the main hall, and which led to the collapse of everything on this side. So this is what, when we say compartmentation of the building, so that things do not go from one side to the other. They do not only spread the smoke, but fire also, as in this case. I think 1 or 2 more slides. Next. This is the ceiling, because it was being sprayed with water that remained intact. If water was not sprayed, if that could have collapsed, smoke and heat would have gone out, and probably the main hall could have been saved. Now this is what we end up in times doing the wrong things. Next, please. Conclusion: smoke is the biggest killer. We have to just manage this. Built-in and protected means of escape are essential requirement for the building for people to escape. They are again required for the fire people also to really get into the building and fight the fire. And ALPs, that aerial ladder platforms, helicopters, we talk about so many things. They are not that required, that much useful. They may be in some cases, but not all the times. And sprinkler is the best possible thing to control the fire, not allow things to go out of this space. And probably we have to think in terms of having a sort of changed sprinkler system, not as per their specification IS 15105, because that needs huge amount of setup. But yes, I think this is what I wanted to share. Any questions or anything, please?
So thank you so much, Sharma Saab. It's as always, it's a wonderful presentation explaining so many things. It's always a pleasure to listen to you. And when I was talking about old participants of our programs, they were remembering you. that they had some good presentation and good discussion with you during so many training programs. So once again, thank you so much for making a wonderful presentation. So now with these three presentations, we have a lot of questions, and I will try to summarize few of them. But before we go to discussion mode, Muzaffar sir, are you there? Dr. Muzaffar?
Yeah. We have seen a number of problems in urban areas, and if we talk about this, specifically about the critical infrastructure, where it is not only the designs, but also, the maintenance of the fire safety equipment, for which we don't play any stress, and which we have been ignored. We have seen worst hospital fire was one of the that was Emory Hospital, where more than 100 people died. Absolutely, this was a due to negligence who could have been saved. And that time in the NDMA, we thought we need to do something for making our hospitals, especially in the urban area, safe. And for that, a group of experts, we also tried to have come up with the national hospital safety guidelines, which are now available. And where it was not only thought that the external disasters, but internal disasters, whether the building collapse and the fire being the main important problem, where we had seen large number of hospitals. Even after that, whether it was Bhubaneswar Hospital, All India Institute twice in the JP Apex Trauma Center, main building, and large number of even in other cities, hospitals have suffered for one reason or the other. And the fire incidents have been there, and it has been seen that hospitals, not only hospitals were not having only the disaster management plan. They had no SOPs and protocols for even the evacuation plans, evacuation routes at the time of patients and the staff had to be evacuated to a safer place. Although the hospital buildings had not a separate building code, it was the same building as any other building, but I think now the group was working to have a separate building code for the critical infrastructure and hospitals, which was really needed. And what has been mentioned, it is the smoke. It is the smoke which has created problems in a number of instances where the people have died due to the smoke, and smoke in the critical infrastructure, in critical institutions is required. And what is also required, briefly, I would to make the healthcare institutions safe, even for the chemicals which can cause problems, chemical spills, biological, and the present pandemics. The healthcare institutions have to be made safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. You have rightly brought out various pertinent issues, including evacuation plan and smoke venting and so many other things. So we will definitely take up during the discussion. I will raise this question about the disaster management plan of various entities, and including hospitals, to one of these speakers. So thank you so much, sir. Paul Saab, are you there? Professor Paul?
Yeah, I'm here. I am here.
So this is the time for you to give brief closing comments. And one question which I am going to raise you, which one of the participants has raised, is that how to evaluate structural stability post fire. So including this, you can comment on your closing remarks, but try to be brief because we are already short the time limit.
Okay. In fact, I jotted down all the points that were mentioned in the chat box, and I have shared that with you. And I think if you are connecting, sending them the mail, that can be done. First, I will take your question, assessing the structural stability of buildings related to the incident of fire. Unfortunately, we are very raw in that in taking up this entire subject of structural fire safety and strengthening. There was only one example. One is aware of Vigyan Bhavan, where some fire strengthening was done. But looking at the India being a developing countries, and we still have a resource paucity, I think fire damaged structures, they need to be taken up very seriously before they are pulled down, because if there is a residual life that we can restore and some retrofitting can be done, that will be a huge benefit for the nation as a whole, because we can't allow buildings to be pulled down just like that, because, and if it's possible, so some kind of cost benefit can be done. This is an area which is very important, and so far very few works. I know IIT Gandhinagar has been doing a few things on that, but very limited work on this one. We've tried to do it, but there is a lot of non-destructive testing and some testing of the few samples that can be done. And there are very many ways. This FICCI building had a great disaster which was pulled down. I thought they would undergo some kind of structural retrofitting. They probably had some other plans, but that was a classical case where we could see the RCC building that's normally considered to be good, but it is shattered into pieces, so something which was a great learning for them. Coming to some of these questions people have been raising, one question was on the incentivizing by some kind of cost benefit given to the people. Yes, all kinds of incentivizing, whether it is making fire equipment less expensive for the people. In fact, at the end of the day, any cost incentive in case of fire will actually benefit the government and the society, because if people use these equipment like fire detectors, like smoke detectors, why don't we allow every household to have a smoke detector? At least it will be known, and the cost will come down to peanuts. Actually, they look at the economies of the scale, and at the end of the day, even if you make a zero tax, the cost of the fire safety that the fire department and the state bears will actually outweigh that advantage that we can give. So definitely we have to see things beyond this kind of routine strategies. There was a question on the third party audit and qualified personnel and utilizing the experience of fire professionals. Indeed, there is a dearth of good fire professionals. So for fire professionals, if they are retired, they must be used, because India will take a long time before an army of qualified professionals is made available for auditing and evaluating. I mean, we can't do it with the kind of manpower we have. So every other resource, that a person is retired or something, we should look into this possibility of taking them in. One very interesting question on the codes, that whether they need to be kind of updated and monitored, etc. My belief is that the code is to be revised on the regular basis as the learnings happen. But the trouble is, codes are based on scientific basis. These are not personal preferences. I think this should be done. Nonsense. It cannot happen like that. Fire is a physics, chemistry, and engineering. It has to be validated on some principle. So that is where the codes will have to be done on the rationale. But unfortunately, very few engineering and even the architecture or built environment institutions are undertaking. I feel very strongly that all IITs, NITs, etc., they must have at least one department of fire safety or built infrastructure, fire safety related specialization done there, because that's where the thinking and the learnings will start happening. And we have so much of a capacity to be absorbed in the system. So I think this is something which is very, very important, and hardly educational programs are available. So once that part is strengthened, the codes will become automatically more and more scientific. There was a of why management plans are not done. Actually, it's a zero cost advantage, and it can easily be done. And these are a few questions I wanted to address, and I hope that answers most of the thing. And last, Dr. Amir, you had asked me to say a four-liner, two-liners. So
Yes.
I simply say that this is a fire is a long path, but we need to have a resolve to reach that destination, and we must resolve that we should be able to do it. So I will just share one of four lines. What I say is, शौक से दिल जला कि देखने वाले की भी आह निकले, मजा तो तब है कि दिल से अपने भी सिर्फ वाह निकले, किसी मुकाम पे ना पहुंचे तो भले का और बुरा क्या होगा, कशिश ही काफी है कि हम चले और सामने से राह निकले. So if we start traversing this path, we will reach the destination. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you so much, sir, for very encouraging couplet, and it's wonderful to have this couplet as well in our fire thing, because fire is slightly distressing, and you have rejuvenated our moods as well. So thank you so much. So now, Bahal Saab, this is your turn. Bahal Saab, are you there? Dr. Bahal, you have to unmute.
Yeah, right.
Okay, you are already there. So you have to give your closing comments, and with one or two questions, which how many Delhi hospitals have the HDMPs, and are you conducting mock drills regularly in your hospital, and what is your take on this? So these are few of the questions which were raised by the participants. So I'm not taking all, but few of them. Select one. How many hospitals have the HDMP, hospital disaster management plans in Delhi, and how regularly you are conducting the mock drills? And try to be brief as possible, because we are already shooting our time limits. Thank you.
Yeah, very right. Now, we do conduct mock drills, but that mock drills are just the mock drill of the system. They burn a fire outside, and a person from the fire side comes on, he extinguishes, perform the extinguisher. Mock drills have to be in a mode like evacuation. I do remember I got a phone call. I had been the head of emergency services. Yeah. So I got a phone call that there has a bomb implanted in the nursery. Nursery is where small children and newborns are kept. Can you imagine what was my fate or what was my thought? We have nothing to do what we can do. Nursery cannot be evacuated because the incubators, we have the oxygen, we have other gadgets along with it. And the people whom we say to evacuate, they said, no, we cannot manage it. And coming down the stairs and other things are very tough, very tough. So preventive strategies, virus attacks, of course, there. Then somehow or other, I came down to know, I'm very frank, I came down to know from one of my colleagues, don't do anything. Sanitize the area, call the fire brigade people, fire the bomb disposal squad, and let's see. Luckily, there was no bomb in that area. And we are conducting mock drills in not a good form. Basically, evacuation has to be a part of it. Then evacuation routes have to be very clear. So people have to dwell on that. And we should be able to triage the victim. That's what I feel. We are not given enough weightage to the victims who are coming down. Our main thing is to have the best possible outcome. Means you should be able to save as many as lives as possible. It was perfectly good that the smoke is of course there, and along with the smoke we have carbon monoxide and some noxious gases. So what we require is a hyperbaric oxygen, which is not very common in most of the hospitals. We don't have in our institutions, which is one of the bigger tertiary care institutions. We have only in Wellington Hospital. So they can be all built up. And we have, for example, if a fire breaks at some areas, people not clear what has to be done. So that training, inbuilt training of the doctors, of the hospital staff is a must when you want to go ahead with this. And naturally, the priorities in the hospital setup may be far different. Saving the life of the people, working with the post-burn victims, our priorities are a little different. But there has to be a place for that, what I feel. Any particular question, if that is there, I can ask.
No, thank you so much, sir. Because we are already running out of time, so we will definitely request the participants to send all those things in chat box, and we will try to collect and answer all those questions at a later time. So Sharma Sahab, you are already there. You just need to unmute your mic, and you have to give your closing comments. And one or two specific questions came to you
Okay.
is. Uh, how many cinema halls have the DM plans? This is one. And how to ensure that the places of public gathering like shadi या function या उस तरह की चीजें have the quality material which is fire safe. As a fire officer, how do you ensure that there are several incidences where fire has took place like in school functions, and we had
Okay.
plastics, and we have open electric wires and that type of things. So some
Okay.
reflection on those things. Thank you, and try
Well,
to be
these
brief.
questions, the questions so far as is concerned for gathering, we had this dance are there. 50% to be kept open, 50% they should have means of escape. So these things are there, and now it is self-regulatory. People have to confirm that they have got all the facilities required there. They are provided, and cinemas. I think this information has to be from the service. I think they should be having the plan, but I don't know whether they have got really a plan drawn in that particular fashion, which probably normally should be done. Few things I have just I'd like to mention here is that risk mapping was one of the things which was mentioned one of the speakers there. I think for Delhi it is very much required. More than thousands JJ clusters, about 50 lakh people living in them, very fragile construction. You you certainly need risk mapping for such areas which are not being controlled as of now, and they're going out of hand because some lot of additions are taking place. So that is one area probably. NIDM, maybe when we are taking up this, can be taking this. Dr. Paul mentioned, somebody mentioned about the smoke detectors for the houses. Well, standalone detectors are available nowadays, about 300 rupees each. There's a operating on a battery. It can give an alarm, and it gives some street signal also, so that you are woken up in the night. So can be put up in maybe your kitchen or maybe in the bedroom, so that you get to know something has happened. Regarding the fire service improvement, I think one area which is I find is not being we have not been able to do yet is the computerization of command and control system. Every fire service, if that is brought in, probably the response time can be reduced considerably. What is the resources available, you know quickly, and what is you can respond is again computer aided dispatch. It is going to be improving the efficiency. Whatever we say 3 to 5 minutes in the urban area and 10 to 15 minutes in the rural area. Otherwise, there is no time limit for these things. Another thing was for the fire services. I think NDMA, we had 13th Finance Commission creating some funds uh, for upgradation of fire service. I think that one area which is very much necessary in those things is that we should have protective clothing, PPEs for firemen. When they respond to the incident where they don't know what they are going to face, and something goes wrong, something is not known to them, at least they will be able to saving themselves to that extent that they will not be burnt into that. So PPEs for all firemen, and then other equipments, and especially that utilizing the funds. I think some amount of few hundred crores was kept for the upgradation of fire service in the country under this NDMA through the SDMAs. I have found that the funds are not really used because the fire service, if they make a plan, what are the developments required in the next years to come, how many fire stations to come, how many recruitment and training, whatever training center, their facilities, if that is taken care and then we buy the equipment, then it's better. Otherwise, I have seen that some places, because 25 available, we can't spend, no plan is there, nothing, so buy one aerial ladder platform costing about 10 crore or 15 crore. Well, that is not the solution. So we have to use this money rightly by drawing at how to uplift the fire service, what is their need to carry out that assessment. I think that area is there which is probably needs to be seen. Please, I think that was from my side.
And you have to tell about cinema disaster management plans as well.
Okay. See the updation of the code. See what we do have the code based on only on the height parameters. If it is 15 meters height, then we have the say 1 lakh 50,000, more than say 20, say 30. Well, this is something wrong. So what needs to be changed is, because there can be a building which is 24 meters with only 500 square meter floor plate, and it is just total area maybe around 4,000 square meter, not 4,000, some around 3,000 square meter, 2,000 square meter. But there can be other building in a huge floor plate, maybe 2,000 square meter or 3,000, and it is less than 15 meters. So it is exempted, or maybe 15 meters with 50,000 liter, having a huge floor plate. So now this has to be probably synchronized with the total area of the building and total risk, and that particular is to be taken care of.
Available now.
Okay, right, please.
Okay, so thank you so much, Sharma sir, but you have not answered that question of cinema disaster management plans. So someone asked in the chat box and mentioned
I
that
think we can have this information from the fire service.
Okay.
Right,
some participant told only two cinema halls in Delhi have the DM plans. I'm not sure about that. This was the question.
You may be right.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the thing. So thank you so much. And now, ED sir, can you give the closing comments and close the webinar session? Thank you, sir. This is your turn
now. I've listened to each and every word for the last 2 hours, and it was refreshing to hear such so much amount of knowledge and put together by the various speakers in such a structured form that it brought all the facets together. Finally, what comes out is that the measures taken by a building for its own protection is the best. Like what was amply brought up, a sprinkler system, fire equipment installed in the building is better than relying on the fire resources which come from outside. However, in that caution was added that there should always be an inlet pipe so that the gravity fed system can be fed from outside. I agree to that because like first responder, it is the building's fire safety, and the people there have to be trained to do what is required to do. The confusion created because in the fire, like it was brought out, smoke. But I have been into many fires and seen many fires in my lifetime because of various postings. The biggest impediment to carry out any activity is the blackness of the fire. The smoke which comes out is so black and it's so pitch dark that it is impossible to see what you're doing. So the disorientation that it causes along with the other issues is a major factor, and that can be removed only by regular drills, regular practice, so that it gets, the body gets, and the mind memory gets tuned to do what it is supposed to do in absence of any directions, in absence of any visibility. Having said that, I fully endorse the point that the building evacuation plan has to be done in a realistic way. Today, it is being done as a boutique initiative, wherein like a technology demonstrator, and wherein advance notice is given and some people get together and small demo is organized. But in actuality, it does not happen. Recently, there was a case where 3 cars in the basement got caught fire due to the sanitizers kept in them. And the first 3 floors started getting gutted. But thanks to them, because of the slow spread of the fire, they could move out. But it also shows that there were no injuries, that they had a good plan in place. The next issue that I would also emphasize, which I said in the beginning, that the fire services need to be strengthened. Today, they are woefully short of equipment and manpower. And if there is a fire in any location in a city, the fire tenders move there. Should there be a second fire, there is no resources for that. That is the state today we are in. We cannot take on two major fire incidents in the same city together. So that capability needs to be increased. Then the issue that was brought out in the last about the nursery cannot be moved. It is a practical example given because nursery cannot be moved. The people who are on ventilator cannot be moved. So there has to be, in hospitals especially, and in such critical places where people cannot be moved, the fire prevention techniques and mitigation measures have to be foolproof. And it has to be multi-layer so that even if there is a fire, a part of that building is saved from all effects of the fire other than the whole building coming crashing down. So that thing has to be done. And for that requires a lot of investment, which needs to be done. Triaging of victims is very important because for everyone the fire is the same because the stinging sensation is quite a lot. So even right at the site itself, where there might not be any medico, I'll say, available, general public should also know whom to evacuate first and what are the basic precautions to be taken. Having said that, there was an interesting chat someone was giving that fire services is involved in practically everything, whether it be floods or whether it be earthquake, whether it be corona now we are seeing. So the question that I am now thinking, for which we will have a separate webinar, and I'm not open for discussion now, is should we include disaster management as one of the primary responsibilities also for the fire services, so that they are equipped accordingly, because on ground they are now as first responders along with SDRF and NDRF. They are being put into all response activities right on day one, and they are doing a very, very good job. That too, when they are not, it is not their primary responsibility. So is there a case in point to include that as their part of primary duties also, and bring them under the DM Act only for disaster management issues? So this is a question I leave with the audience and participants. So next time when we have a webinar, we will have a discussion on this subject. So let's see what comes out of it. I once again thank all the speakers for giving excellent presentations. And I hope Dr. Amir Khan has taken the presentations, because I would myself like to go through them once again. And all the participants who were engaged and who gave such good observations and asked so relevant questions, which showed that this topic is very close to everyone's heart. Thank you once again. And thank you, Dr. Amir Ali Khan, for conducting a good webinar. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for kind words, as well as nicely summing up the issues. And one message is very clear from the entire discussion is that we have to take self-protection measures, and we have to equip ourselves with the fire extinguishers, in my opinion, which is not very costly. One fire extinguisher is costing under 2,000, 4 kg size. So we have to invest that much in every household. So this is the very strong message that we have to start taking precautions at individual level. Unless we do that, we are not able to minimize the fire hazard in our houses, in our residential complexes, residences, and all these places. So thank you very much, sir, for guiding us to take up this webinar. NIDM has always been very kind encouraging us to take different topics for the webinars. And this is in that series that we are able to conclude this a webinar on fire and life safety in urban context, which is definitely a very critical topic to be discussed upon. And thank you so much, sir, for the encouragement and nice words and kind words. See all speakers, Paul Saab, Sharma Saab, and the Bahel Saab, wonderful presentations. No words to thank you for the kindness. All three of you have exclusively covered these topics, as ED has already mentioned about this. Muzaffar Saab and Loy Saab, you were always kind. The comments given by you are very rightly taken in appropriate manner. Thank you so much for sparing that much of time and commenting on various aspects of fire hazard risk mitigation things. All the participants, thank you so much for patiently attending this and raising so many questions about uh, different aspects of fire hazard and safety related issues. Thank you so much to all participants. Last but not the least, the NIDM team. So with this, we just conclude this webinar. And so thank you so much, and
Thank you,
looking
sir.
forward
Thank you,
to for another webinar. And thank you to all for patiently listening and participating in this webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you.